major. Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us live for a Surf and Sales Bonfire session. We're super excited today because we have the legend himself, Aaron Ross, who I think most of us know of. I've gotten to know him over the years, and I always appreciate time with Aaron, who's really helped build the sales career into the sales career and the sales world into what has become today. So Aaron, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here, Richard. It's been a while. And Scott, good to meet you kind of the first time. And hey, everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know about building the sales career and into what it is today, but it's still kind of often very strange to be in the sales world because maybe at least I grew up thinking I'd be like an astronaut or pilot or engineer. And the last thing I ever would have thought I would do or even understood was sales and marketing or sales lead generation. So it's still kind of weird juxtaposition.
I'm here. I still believe I'm going to be a professional athlete one day.
That's and who's to say you're not?
So Aaron, well, I know curling's coming up in the Winter Olympics, Scott. There you go.
Poker, curling.
So Aaron, so how did you even get it? I don't even know this part of your story. I know I've read your books, and obviously let's shout out to Predictable Revenue and From Impossible to Inevitable. If you haven't read them, I don't know what you're waiting for. But how'd you even get into sales then? Like, I don't even know that part of that story of you.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's two answers because there's the professional sales answer, which I wrote about in the Predictable Revenue book, which was had a company and raised money for it back in 99, 2000. And that company went out of business. And one of the reasons was because I didn't know, I was CEO, I didn't know how to build and manage a sales team. I had a VP of sales, kind of, I would say, abdicated my understanding. I didn't delegate it. And, the company went under. It's like, next time I got to learn how to build and manage a sales team. So that's why I went to Salesforce and got a job there. And I would say, one of the things I still tell people is don't let your ego get in the way of getting paid, of like basically learning what you need to learn. Because a lot of times you just need to be in the trenches doing the dirty work. And for me, that was a job. It was the most junior job at Salesforce, like answer the 800 line, and the chance to get paid to learn. At least that's the way I looked at it. Not paid much, but kind of. And then actually learn up is what I needed to do.
What's the non-professional answer, if you can give it?
Oh, there wasn't so much of that. It was, even back when I was in college, I did a College Pro Painters franchise, and I sold ads for the Stanford newspaper. I didn't even really know what that was. I was selling without really understanding what selling was. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, there's a lot of people who naturally, go make things happen through energy and passion and not like a systematic way. And a lot of entrepreneurs are that way. They can sell because they're excited and they care about it. And that's important. And it's great, but it's different than having like a systematic sales approach to create that predictability. So,
you just mentioned like having this energy and passion that kind of carries you through. Does anybody still have that passion and energy right now, 9-10 months into this that you had at the beginning of the year, or maybe in March and April? Or is that really like winding down, and what are you doing, if anything, to combat that and refine that energy?
Not even that. I mean, look, I'm like 9 years into building a huge family. So I've got 9 kids and 4 dogs. I've been tired for 8.95 years.
Yeah.
Or whatever the amount is, right? It's just like so tired emotionally and physically and mentally. And so the pandemic actually for me has been a bit of a break in a lot of ways. Not totally, because it's always stressful, and like we had 2 teenagers that were under a lot of stress from it. But for a while it's a break, not having to get kids to school every day back and forth, and that schools are open now, so that's but like financial, like our business dipped for a while, but now it's come back strong. So I think one thing I've learned is that, at least for me, like I used to write when I was inspired, and that was before all this. And, that worked for me with Predictable Revenue. The Impossible book I wrote because I had deadlines. I had to do it. Or like I created days, and I rarely wrote from inspiration. I rarely was inspired that, oh, I'm going to write that down. It was the reverse, which is I'm going to sit down and write and make stuff happen. And then at that point, kind of made the inspiration come during those moments. So I think for me, like learning, I couldn't wait for energy, time, passion, or anything to find me. I had to still just make things happen, whether or not I had that.
Yeah.
But I know it's a huge issue. Like enormous percentages of people today are dealing with, again, loneliness and depression and burnout. And I feel you. I get that.
Yeah. I never would consider myself somebody who struggles for motivation or passion or anything like that. And I'm hitting it kind of for the first time where I'm like, I really don't feel like doing that much today. I'm kind of fortunate enough that I don't have to do all that much. So I'm just wondering, like, what advice you might be able to give people to push through, even if people know, like, well, I have to make things happen, but you're kind of struggling to find that energy or that passion, especially now as we start to move towards the holidays, which are a more stressful time, are a lonelier time. We know that, suicides go up and all sorts of mental health stuff. And then we got to deal with family coming up and traveling potentially during all this to meet up with this family.
Or not traveling. Yeah. I'm feeling guilty about that.
Yeah, sure. What are some of your tips for that? I see the guitar in the background. Maybe maybe music is something that helps you.
Yeah, I mean, so one is, everyone's a bit different. And even I see that with myself and my wife are very different, kind of like motivation, our teenager, so everyone's very different. You got to find something that works for you. I tend to be the type that I feel like there's two kinds of people when there's a lot of stress, right? There's some people that are paralyzed. Like myself and my teen daughter tend to be that, like, okay, I don't do anything. I'm just kind of paralyzed. And my wife, there's the other type, which is kind of I call the rabid chihuahua, which is like my wife, which is like, I'm going to work so much and so fast. I'm not even sure which direction I'm going. So it's kind of like being aware of that. And I know for me, I'm good about using deadlines and I call them forcing functions, which I wrote about in the Impossible book. Like things, I burn my bridges, so I have to do them. Like announcing a book publication date, or taking on a new kind of client, or just like committing to things with other people where I have to show up and do it, whether I feel like it or not. So I'm good at that. One thing I have not been great at, which I've been working on for a long time, is like self-care, where like the guitar, which I'm new at, I don't play it very well, but it's fun to do. It's like even maybe 5 minutes a day, exercise here and there. So my version is the primary, I think, version is every 3 days, I try to get a nap in, like 20 minutes, right? And for me, because I'm usually up until like 11, maybe 12 at night, work, kids, teens, this, that, the other. And then I get up at 6 for like school prep and things. And because my wife is ill, has an health issue. And so like a nap kind of saves me. Otherwise, so everyone's a bit different. Like that's number one. Number two is probably exercise. I already eat pretty well. And then the last thing I know, one of the things that gets me through each day is often like I look forward to, I love coffee. So I have like the oat milk barista edition, Oatly. It's amazing. Love it. Just that instant coffee. That's just like something, a simple thing I look forward to the next day. It just gets me through that day if it's a rough one. And a lot of them are. I mean, big family, lots of stress. Either, whether it's my stress or not, like other people are stressed about everything, colleges, money, health, teenage, dating. Oh my, it's just like crazy. So sometimes you just gotta do it. So one more thing is, I know my teen, it's really stuck, really procrastinates and really paralyzed. And a lot of that paralysis is just from not doing the stuff she needs to do. It kind of gets all emotionally stuck in her. So some people, again, work too much too fast and kind of lose direction. And other people just got to figure out like, where are you stuck? So kind of like self-awareness is one of them. And then like working around with your strengths and against your weaknesses to just keep yourself going.
How do you coach someone, and whether it's your team or one of your coworkers or someone on your team, when they get emotionally stuck? because I see that. I have a little bit of that in me. I think I have a little. I go a little bit of both ways where I can't remember what you said. Sort of the rabbit jumping around.
Oh yeah, the deer in headlights versus the rabid chihuahua.
Right, the rabbit chihuahua.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, sure we all have elements of them. Yeah, elements, and which one's more predominant. And there might be more. I just
Yeah.
when people get emotionally stuck, I mean, I'm probably emotionally stuck a lot. I think all of us are on some version. And I know in my team, so we have 60 people at Predictable Revenue. And again, I would just guess a third are probably dealing with burnout or depression. I don't know if it's less or more. I'm just kind of saying there's 70%. There's just a lot of people dealing with that. And understandably, again, I've been remote for 10 years, so I haven't had to have as much of an adjustment as people who've been in an office and had to go remote. I got this, same issue. So I think just talking is just find people to talk to. It's such a huge step. So whether you're stuck with, I don't know what to do about work, or like you just, again, feeling just emotionally shut down, or like talking with people always helps a lot. That's like a kind of go-to, like forget like simple stuff, and like finding people you can talk to, which sometimes is easy, sometimes is not. You get that. So that's probably one. And everyone, for me, like I like walking a lot. I don't feel like I have much of a chance to do it now. And it's probably more a feeling because we always have more time. I have more time than I realize. It's like, how do I use it? But it feels challenging to like go out for a walk when I have so many other things. So that's kind of one of my things, like walking.
Yeah,
Beautiful city.
I've tried to do more walk and talks. If it's not a Zoom meeting,
Walk and talk is good. Yeah, better than sitting or Zoom if you can.
those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I've sort of told people, well, can't we do a Zoom? And I'm like, yeah, we don't. Everything doesn't need to be a Zoom. Like it doesn't. Certain things should be, but not everything. Um,
Right.
so is your whole? So I don't know if everybody knows this. So when did you move? Last year, 2019?
January this year from Los Angeles. I've been there for 10 years to Edinburgh, UK.
Right. So
Right.
January, and then all of a sudden the pandemic hits. Right.
Yeah.
So
Happy to be here. It's great. I mean, honestly, love the city, and we're so busy getting used to everything that
right.
the not being able to go lots of places hasn't really affected us that much.
And did you pick up the whole crew? Everybody went, or are some people still home in the States?
Well, we brought 5 kids over, and then 2 teenagers came over because they were going to boarding school, and with the pandemic, so now we have 7, and there's 2 21 22-year-olds at college, and LA still at College of Santa Monica.
Right.
So we got 7. So it's nonstop here. But a lot of days, honestly, again, I feel like so I don't have time to think, which is sometimes true and sometimes not. I guess more of a feeling. It's like one thing I'm working how to make better use of moment if I have 1 minute or 5 minutes. I'm not good with those little moments. I tend to need bigger chunks for like sitting and thinking or writing. I don't write well every day. I just don't. I need like 5 hours to do like a good writing session. So but yeah, it's been great here, and I think that, sorry, I might be getting off topic, but everyone, it's, I don't mean, like there's so much like shit going on in the world and like in teams, and like why can't we just like admit that, and that people don't know what's happening and they have no clue, and everyone's in the same boat, and it's like I totally get faking it till you make it. But I think that's partly one reason we also get stuck is like I need to kind of look good in some way, but I can't be myself, and so I need someone I can talk to, whether it's a spouse or a friend or a therapist, where I can just kind of let's just go. I haven't tried it. One other idea, if like emotionally triggering movies to like help just bring stuff out. So I think I veered off topic on that, Richard, but
that's all right.
Are you somebody who blocks a bunch of time out? You said you need, a chunk of time in order to write, for example. So are you, with your hectic schedule, somebody who's like, okay, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. I'm doing this, and 8 to 10 I'm doing that? Or are you kind of firing all over the place at all times?
I do. I know my calendar is very key. I set blocks of time out for things. It's often tentative because there's always some there's always, it's like predictable chaos here between like a kid that like cuts a finger, or like the car runs out, I don't know, just there's always, every day there's always something. So my schedule can be quite fluid. Like yesterday, my wife had a migraine yesterday, right? So I had to kind of drop a bunch of stuff in this morning. So yeah, I do set blocks of time, and like bedtime, I block out, and like writing time, I have to write some reports for clients this week, and I'm blocking them out. And I'd had blocks, but they didn't work because again, stuff came up. So blocks work for me. There's really four I focus on, like just work blocks. There's it's late here. So basically work time, family time. Like I block out mornings, I block out bedtime and school pickups and things. Very active. Block out date time, which is that's not happening enough here. My wife, and me time, and doesn't quite happen enough. Yeah. So.
Does it ever happen is the question. I think that's the challenge, right?
Yeah.
Not enough versus does it ever?
Yeah. I mean, you can't get it, it's a balance. I mean, it's hard. Being a human's hard. Being a parent, being an entrepreneur, being anything, it's hard. I find, I don't know, you might be, you have a different opinion.
A lot of people look up to you and respect a lot of your influences, but we all know it does take a village, right? And you've talked a little bit about, whether it's a therapist or your spouse or a friend, who are the people you do go to about life questions or work questions? Like, do you have sort of that personal board of directors where, I'll go to so-and-so for this and so-and-so to that?
I don't. I've got, also because my life has been so like moving around a lot. A lot of my friends from the past, like I live in the Bay Area, then I moved to LA, and from LA to here, and still like meeting. There's lots of cool people here, and like therapists, I don't really. It just kind of depends. So I know a lot of people, but I don't like right now. Besides my family, have many people that are like really close to where I can do that if it's emotional or family stuff. Sometimes. But like on business side, it kind of depends on the topic, right? We're looking at how to grow we have a consulting business, training business. Predictable revenue overall is like probably do 4 million this year, even with COVID. And like a little bit less than $1 million of that is training consulting. And we want to like figure out how to grow that part of the business. And like, I haven't done that kind of business. I need to talk to some people who've done that. So I'm reaching out to people.
Yeah, I saw you write about this. I think it was this morning, actually. Looking for people who have scaled consulting businesses from 1 million to 10 million.
A few, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, if anyone knows, I'm like, I just don't have the energy to try to figure it out myself. And
I think that's common right now, and I think that's one of the reasons why so many conversations like this have been happening all over the place, online and on Zoom and all these different micro communities and different events like this, because all of us are in need of help, and all of us are in need of increased communication and a sense of community and whatnot. I mean, I've spent more time with some folks on Zoom than I've spent with my friends and family members outside of those who live with me in the last year. 100%. And I think that serving some of that role, whether it's therapist or a listening ear, or, depending on which side of the fence you're on, I guess. Have you participated in many events or in any of these kind of communities, or is it something that you're looking at from afar still?
More from afar. I mean, I've done lots of speaking and webinars and things. And we have some community. I just find like, I like people I did like an AMA on, this guy named Nathan Latka, who had he's got a Slack community, and that was fun to do, but I have such a big family here. I'm lucky in the sense that I don't have issues of loneliness, or boredom. I wish I did sometimes. I have the opposite problem. A lot of people, where again, there's got to be in like between loneliness and boredom and other things going on when you're maybe living alone or with just one person. And so the community thing, I would love to do more of that. I just, in terms of energy and time, it's not there yet.
Yeah.
I believe it. I would love to do like more of a predictable revenue community. We have one. Yeah, but yeah, a lot of my days, I'm just getting through the day, getting between like big family, wife sometimes is not feeling so good and not, and a lot like kid applying to college, like that alone, it's not that much time, but like emotionally, it's a lot, man. But a lot of people, I mean, there's huge change for this world this year. It's just unbelievable. I think last year, like, could you imagined, like, would you have ever thought? I mean, some people said the zombie apocalypse might happen, but then it actually did in its own way. And, it's like more disruption, but it's also creating amazing opportunities that aren't even going to be seen by most people for a few years. Like who knows, but in a year or 5 years, people look back and like, wow, that like shifted just, people's lives in a lot of, like, of course, painful ways, but for a lot of people and businesses, it'll catapult them on a new trajectory.
It definitely accelerated a lot of things. I think this is a good segue. I know Eric, and I hope I don't mispronounce it, David Eck, has a question for you. So we're going to let Eric jump on and ask you his question.
That was perfect pronunciation. Perfect. Hey, Aaron, thanks for being here, man. And Sharon, I got to tell you, before I ask the question, since I'm unmuted, so I lived in Iceland for a while, and I'm hearing echoes, in your voice of what I felt when I lived there. It was like pre-pandemic living. It was pandemic living before the pandemic. You get so insulated, and your immediate surroundings become your world, because everything's kind of unfamiliar, and I found it to be very dangerous for me personally. It caused me to really kind of contract. So hopefully you can avoid that. I would suggest surfing or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, one of the two.
My plan is to find some clay shooting. I love shooting.
That works too. See, Iceland can have guns. That's the problem. Well, anyway, so back to the question. I'm curious. In the beginning, you were kind of talking about building sales systems, and I'm curious if you're building from the ground up. What metrics would you be looking at first? What would you be trying to track, or what parameters would you put in place as kind of a first measure?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of times the first thing I look at is there's kind of like these three big lenses I started to look at more for a company. And like, again, I mentioned one of these reports, it's the same thing, which is if you have leads, can you measure the effectiveness of the leads kind of per channel or per type from creation through pipeline, or at least revenue, hopefully. Right. So how much of what kinds of leads are coming in, and how well do they perform through your, all the way through your funnel as much as you can. That's one direction. It's like front to back in a way. Another view is, okay, if all the opportunities created, then what happens to them? So it's a little towards the middle, like middle to the end. And then the reverse way, which is, okay, can you look at all the revenue you've sourced? All the revenue, you're closing at some time period, and see where did that come from? And most companies can't see those and there's all sorts of reasons. That's fine, but that's kind of where I'd start, which is how well do you understand what's driving your revenue, where it comes from or not? So lead generation is part of that. Segmenting, kind of understanding the types of revenue you have is another. And, having your systems and process tied together just to have more clarity on like, well, what's working, so I know what levers to try to move or pull, or what's missing. That's where I'd start. Yeah.
That's really cool. And I love the fact too that you're also living it, right? You're like, hey, what are our buckets of business?
I got a business, and we don't even do that very well sometimes. But so the other thing, I'm thinking about this a lot, because in my mind, I'm working on this thing, and this, I'm not saying fast, it could be slow, is I call it sales operating system. And it's like a lot of times we forget, and I'm drawing this one image, how simple it is. We're just looking at like what inputs are going into kind of the processes and outputs. And sometimes it's like all the fanciness and stuff, like maybe there's all the systems, we forget to stop and look at, like in a marketing team, what's going in marketing funnel, what's going out. Like just kind of taking like a simple, like how do we try to simplify this? And it can get really complicated in bigger companies, but it doesn't doing something, another reports like with Cisco, a division, and that's amazing at how the bigger you get, the harder it is to get accurate data in a way too. So every company struggles with this, and it's always changing. But it's like it's just getting a handle on kind of like what's coming in, what's driving revenue, and do I have a sense of kind of the steps and some metrics in between.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I love the image. You're very well known for your handwritten
Yeah.
drawings, for everything you do. I know Terry Turner has a question for you that I thought was pretty interesting because I don't know the answer, but I am curious to
Hey,
it for
Aaron,
sure.
thanks for being on. I appreciate your time. My
Yeah,
question
Tim.
is, do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert? And how does that play into your mental health and the mental health of your employees?
Definitely introvert, and that's what the Myers-Briggs always tested me as, kind of forced extrovert. I wouldn't say unwilling extrovert, but developed extroversion maybe as a skill, necessary skill, like sales. When I knocked on doors for the college when I did the painting thing in college, I was not literally knocking on doors, door sales. So I find I do need to kind of push myself to reach out to people, because my natural inclination is to not reach out to people, whether to say hi or it's just kind of to be and but like to remind myself I got to reach out to people, check on them, say hi, how they doing, or whether it's on my team, family, friends. It takes energy to go like, oh, I got to go do that.
How do you manage a life of 7 kids? Like, how do you, like, is there a plan? And then, okay, we got a plan for tomorrow, and by 8 a.m. it's blown up. Like, is it like that,
I mean,
or do you actually have a decent plan then that works?
Well, there's always a plan. So, for example, the schedule is probably one of the worst parts about a big family in terms of it's not even that complicated. It's like who's going to school what time and who's doing pickups, and is there like a ballet class or is there a doctor's appointment? So that's like a never-ending reshuffling of things, which is and probably the least favorite part, one of the least favorite parts of this. But yeah, I mean, sometimes you said things blow up. Like this morning, but at least my wife is feeling better now. But this morning she wasn't, so I got all the kids ready. There's 4 younger ones who need help, or driving, and there's it's just being able to adapt on the fly. It's like trying to create schedules, including teenage chore schedules that kind of work for people. And then there's a comp system too, because if they do like they want to earn some extra money, they can do their regular chore hour, then do like an extra one. So yeah, it's just like schedules is really, and then if we get the schedules right.
Can you share that compensation schedule? Because I think every parent would want
yeah.
that. So
Yeah,
you could put that, you should make that an ebook, and you could probably charge $100 a head, for that download. So
it changes. Well, we don't do much allowance, so they have to kind of earn mostly earn what they need. But it's a whole other story. And everyone's very different. Every kid's different. So you have something that works for one kid, and just like it's literally like predictable chaos every day of this family. Right.
That's the title of your next book right there.
That'd be the parenting book. Yeah. Unpredictable parenting. But I guess why I look at, I think there's 2 kinds of parent bloggers. There's like the ones who talk about like the perfect, this, that, the other, the perfect, how you do homeschooling and how you can, make perfect lunches and stuff, which great. I'm by homeschooling it. And then there's like the snarky parents who make fun of everything, and I don't really, that neither one's really, I don't know how many people here are parents. Yeah. So I don't know, like both are entertaining in their way. There's like the Martha Stewart, like perfection that you can't actually ever do. And then there's like the laugh at your own like poop stains on the walls stuff, but it's like too extreme. And there's not like, I don't know if I found like a reality of parenting, what it's really like, but I don't know. It's been so long now. I don't remember what it's like to not be a parent, but yeah, it's like every day is a new day, and trying to there's some new problem to figure out, just like being an entrepreneur.
What age ranges are your kids?
The youngest is 3.5, and oldest is 22. So
you run the gambit.
Yeah, the younger was 3. Yeah, in February we'll have basically there'll be 4. The youngest one's 4, 5, 6, 9, and 11. So it's a little more. I mean, when 2 or 3 years ago, when we had like a newborn and 1-year-old, that was just brutal. I was dying. I mean, I don't even remember those years. It's like twins. So, and half the kids are adopted, which is, so yeah, I was just, but I would say, even though it's a blur and it was very physically challenging too, and emotionally, just the nonstop of like surviving day to day with lots of young kids who just need a lot of help, and we had nannies, but still, it's worth it. It's like an amazing family. It's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and tons of laughter and everything else. And it's like if I'd known what it would be like, I wouldn't have done it. But I'm so glad that I got through it so far. And I'm sure I would say the same thing if I knew what 10 years from now would look like. So if I knew what the next 10 years would be like, there's no fucking way I'm doing that. Right. So it's better just to not know. I'm not gonna know. I'll just day by day.
How many stitches does it mean before it's an emergency? Right, like at this point.
Yeah, there's some blood. Yeah, it does give you some perspective on, when you have more problems all the time, and you're like, all right, whatever. Okay, so you hurt your finger. I mean, hasn't been an emergency room visit for a couple months, but there's like depression in one side. There's one child we adopted who has something called arthrogryposis, which is elbows and knees don't bend very well. I mean, that side, this depression and some, even worse stuff there with the pandemic and changes was really hard. That was scary. But when you have physical disabilities, you're like, get used to it. Like, so yeah, there's a bit of I don't want to say numbing, but problems aren't as urgent, and so it's a little bit more of like, is this actually urgent, and I just need to listen more carefully, or is this person just whining and kind of get over it? Or whether it's honestly a teenager who they fucking whine the most, or you get little kids. But
how did you? I'm just curious. At what age? Because you do have this broad spectrum. At what age did the kids recognize this pandemic thing was going on, and how did you explain it to them? Is it hey, we need to have a big family meeting and explain this, and then you have sub meetings, you have to reserve conference rooms in your house?
No, yeah, it's mostly the teenagers, because the younger ones don't really understand. I mean, I don't think they really understand it. They they hear it, and their day to day, they're like home from school for a while, so like and the college kids knew it, and they had less disruption. So it was more the teenagers that had the major disruption, because they were at boarding school in the States and they had to come back here to Edinburgh. And that was a whole traumatic between, like, they have clothes still out there because, one was here from spring break and couldn't go back basically. So that was really hard on them. A lot of talking, still going through it, honestly, kind of, let's say the grieving process with seniors. So that was hard. And most of the kids don't really care. The college kids are struggling, like everyone, with like the virtual schooling. I mean, how many hours on Zoom? I mean, everyone gets tired of it. So that's a struggle. But yeah, it's the teenagers that was really hard. Still is.
You talked about the changing topics here on you, but you talked about how you dipped initially and it's kind of business is picking back up.
Yeah.
What do you credit yourself and your team for the recovery, or is it just more of kind of the reopening, if you will, or the market kind of adjusting and realizing, hey, this is where we are now, we need to do business? Or is there some strategies that you guys deployed that have worked really well to bring things back?
Yeah, I can't point to say there's one thing we did. Like everyone else, we reduced burn. We didn't lay anyone off, but we cut salaries, so we didn't have to lay anyone off. So we reduced cash. We adjusted offerings. We did all the regular stuff. We looked at which customers should we kind of really focus on, which ones to let go. And so like everyone else, like April, May, there's the 2 or 3 months of just like nothing, that the panic time, right? And then, a little bit here and there for a few months. And then last month, October was probably our best month ever.
Wow.
In kind of a way of like, how are we going to deliver some of this? So we have SDRs as a service, like an outsourcing side, and we've got the consulting training. So, we'll see how this month is. I don't necessarily think it was I think it was, I can't say anything other than working together as a team to do our best to kind of adapt and like figure out what do people need, how can we help them, how can we help ourselves,
So how do you
just kind of trusting that things would.
How do you go about trying to figure out how to forecast and plan for 2021 and beyond? Given that none of us know what we're doing, and there's probably people on this call right now, and plenty of people who are being asked to do just that, who are in sales leadership roles or entrepreneurial roles.
Yeah. Well, first I should mention that even in February, March, when this started, what I told my team, I tell people in webinars was, look, it's going to be like, this will be something where if you kind of like embrace it and you dive into the changes you need to make in investments as a person or company, you're going to come out on the other side in a better place. It may not be the same job, and it may not be the same company, but you got to embrace the shit and just adapt as much as you can, and realize it's going to take a lot of steps, and it might even be another couple of years, or you can't predict how long it's going to take to come to the other side of whatever that looks like for you. So I think that was really just continuing to take steps and just trusting that if we're doing the right things for our team and our customers and making improvements, like things will work out the right way. So that's the early signs of that. And then in forecasting, so there's some companies that are, you have confidence because with your market and what you're doing, you're going to have predictability. Like if you're in telemedicine or certain space, e-commerce, you got a tailwind, or great, you can do your forecasts. And then there's a lot of companies, if you're still struggling month to month and quarter to quarter because you're in a challenged market, you can't really forecast. You can scenario plan, pick one as a hope forecast. So it kind of is like gauging, all right, are you what's your risk, the market and segment you're in with what you're selling, how confident can you be? Like there's going to be surprises next year. Okay, vaccine, maybe not. Mutation, who knows? Like you don't know.
So how do you distinguish between the forecast and the scenario plan, as you mentioned?
Well, it kind of depends on who you need to do it for. For investors, like if it's different, if you're a public company, that's a whole nother story.
Well, most people here or listening probably are thinking about it in the context of for their boss, right? Yeah. So think about people who are heads of sales, for example, or even reps who are trying to forecast for their boss, who's the VP of sales.
Yeah. Well, it's always this dance around, you kind of know, there's the forecast where you are supposed to come to some number and you're kind of expected to do that. And then you kind of justify that and you're trying to figure out how to do that. And there's a different forecast, which is you're actually trying to really figure out what's possible. And so like everyone else, you got to look at, here's what I think is like a base case. Here's what, if things go really bad and things go really well, and you kind of stick with the base case and realize that no matter what the forecast is going to be wrong. And
that's my favorite quote, maybe ever of all time. Whatever the forecast is, just understand it's going to be wrong.
Yeah. So, I mean, what we did with our company is, you just probably just pick a number like 20% higher than what we're doing now. And it's kind of like top down, bottoms up. So I don't know. It's like an art. It's like, again, if you're in a smaller company where you really are doing more art, the bigger you get and the more data you have, the more you can forecast for real. And then yet, you can't assume that's the way it's going to happen. You got to be prepared for surprises next year. So I don't honestly have a lot of confidence I can give you some sense on forecasting, except to realize that set expectations that you kind of gauge where you are as like, can you set expectations with the people you're doing the forecast for, and like how, I don't know, like it's just, we don't know what's going to happen in the next year or two. Like, it's crazy to think people can actually predict stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting because I've been saying all along that everybody's got to do a whole new product market fit every 90 days.
Yeah, I mean, just basically.
That's and figuring out what that is. So,
Could be.
but I know Josh Wagner's got a question. So Josh, come on and ask Aaron your
Yeah, it's
question.
along that same vein, actually, where we're seeing enterprise organizations that are unwilling to budget, willing to plan, make decisions beyond 90 days, given the dynamic nature of the economy right now. Do you see that, as you go way back, everything was done in an annual lens. Now it's done in a quarterly lens. Are we going to see that we don't see budget planning, go-to-market plans, things like that look beyond a 90-day window for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard that as much. I believe it, and I don't know, it's kind of these things where the way the world is going is more spectrums. So let's use the gender example, where X years ago you had male, female, and now you have a whole spectrum. And then last year we had either basically work at home or work from an office. Now we've got a spectrum. We're heading to a spectrum where once things loosen up, do you want to work at home 80% or 40% or 10%, right? And so for budgeting and for a lot of other areas, we're kind of looking at, there's going to be more of a spectrum of the way businesses are going to handle things, just because there's more shit going on in the world. So yeah, some companies might stick to annual, some might go to quarterly, and you got to kind of be like, whatever they're doing, be prepared to adapt to, find out how are you going to work with either one, because it's not like all companies are going to 90 days and all companies are not going to stay at annual. You can have both. And some might end up going 180 days, or some might do 45 days. And so like, how are you going to be prepared to, we're just going to more, the way the direction of the whole world is just more variety in general. That's just technology and everything else is driving everything that way. So this is just one example of it. The way people budget and plan and work is going to be, in a lot of ways, is going to be more types.
Yeah, I think we were talking with a friend of ours the other day on another one of these, and he was saying, there is sort of, your best case scenario, your reality, and if COVID never goes away, like you're almost putting together 3 annual plans, which is crazy. I've talked to people too, Josh, and I've heard we're making an annual plan, but we're making decisions every 90 days. Right. And sort of that's where, because I don't think they can.
I get that. You're like adjusting as you go.
I don't know if they can actually, yeah, I don't know that you could do a year and not, or you can only do 90 days and then have to redo it in 90 days. I mean, you can, as long as you have a baseline, is what I'm seeing. So I do think the decision-making process, you're going to have added layers, and I think you're going to have higher layers to get stuff approved, because it really is going to be a true cash flow project decision. It'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. So, Aaron, with your team, like, is everybody remote? Have they always been remote? Has predictable revenue always been
most
remote?
of the team was in person. We had 2 main hubs, one in Vancouver, Canada, and one in Cancun, Mexico. And there's a handful of people remote. So I think for a lot of people, is hard going from primarily office to remote. I feel like a lot of people have adjusted by, anecdotally, a few people said, it was, and now they've kind of got their rhythms down. So.
Are you hiring in the Cancun office?
Yes.
I think people want to know.
Yeah. Well, actually, honestly, if we were hiring anywhere, Canada, States, Mexico, probably anywhere for SDRs, for our SDRs as a service team. I don't remember offhand what the comp is. It's not going to be like States full on US, United States comp, but yeah.
How did you choose Cancun is not a place? I mean, was it a lifestyle decision by the partners or you, or was it like, oh, there's this tap of talent that we didn't realize was here, let's go do it?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember exactly what that was. We knew someone in Mexico in a different city, and so we looked at some different areas, and it turned out Cancun, I think too, because there's a lot of hospitality industry. So language plus people who've done some kind of sales. I don't remember exactly, honestly. At this point, it's 18 months ago. And then we have a little office in Merida. So, the nice thing is, like, the hard part about the everyone virtual is it does put a load. There's a lot of people it puts an emotional load on. And there's, for me, it actually was better because for me, the meeting the team and the whole team is more democratized. Before I was remote, but everyone in offices just kind of tended to like sync up with people in offices, and there really wasn't much leftover kind of communication for people. Like it took so much work to get, like, when I'm remote and everyone else is not, it's a pain in the ass. It's so hard. With everyone remote, there's a lot of advantages kind of management communication wise. It's like there's lots of pros and lots of cons.
What do you find as the advantages?
First, that we have a lot more, again, democratization of like just meeting people no matter where you are, like communication across people. It wasn't just like the Vancouver team meeting. I mean, honestly, like there'd be like the sales team in one office and like the support team in a different office. They wouldn't see as much. Like physically, you get like physical clicks. So the remote kind of blew that up. That's one. And, frees up a lot of hiring issues in terms of like location-based sourcing. Those are the two main ones.
Do you think you'll ever go back to a real office environment with your teams, or do you think, no, now that we've got this dialed in, we're going to stick with it?
I think we've been primarily virtual, and what I believe is we'd have some hub workspaces for people who do want to go into an office and work with others, but not require it.
And do you think it's because it's an economic decision of, hey, it's less expensive in terms of overhead, or we can find equally good talent in different locations? We don't have to, be in the LA area or the Bay Area and those kinds of things, or is it everything?
Yeah. It's kind of everything. I think a lot of people just like a little more of the flexibility and freedom from not being, the FaceTime. Of course, a lot of people really miss that and need that. So I want to recognize that. I miss not having a team to go into. I haven't had that for years. I haven't lived close enough to like a co-working space. So yeah, we save some money, but that's not the main reason. It's the more flexibility for people to like have their schedules work around it.
Great.
There's a lot of it.
Yeah, we got one more question for you, but before we do that, we need to obviously give a shout out. Thank you, Aaron, for coming, and to Predictable Revenue for sort of sponsoring this, as well as Find'em and Vidyard and Perception Predict and Gong and Lead 411, all of our sponsors. But Aaron, we always sort of end this by saying, well, what can we do for you? You got, whether it's Scott and I, you want to ask us a question, or you've got a group of people, you want to ask them something, any questions we can answer for you.
Sure. I mean, so I still, if you haven't read or told people to read the Impossible to Inevitable book, this is still, I still, especially this year, keep going back to this. This is really like this is the book of even more than Predictable Revenue, the book to read and book to adapt with. So if you haven't read it, read it. If you have friends who have businesses or want to be successful, it's really like a growth Bible, not a sales book. Christmas is coming up, so that would be my ask, is to spread the word, because like I know like businesses, it has helped save businesses and grow businesses and jobs. So it's been out. It got updated the last year. You can find it. There's a free chapter and stuff from impossible.com. So cool. That'd be my main ask. And I think just be patient separately. Just if you have a team and people, just be patient with them. Find ways to help people kind of open up and talk about just stuff that's going on that may not be work. Like, I think that's also an important thing, is it's easy to have relationships feel two-dimensional when you're just on the Zoom and it's just work, and you don't have like time aside to talk about non-work and kind of like keep that relationship building going. It's harder. It's not hard. It's just different when it's all virtual. You're not kind of there in person.
Yeah.
And not to forget that.
That's good advice to wrap with right there. Thanks so much, Aaron, for spending some time with us, and thanks for everybody who joined us today.
Yeah,
we certainly appreciate it, everybody. Thanks,
guys.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.